If bombs dropped on your house tomorrow, if you were forced to flee your home, what would you do?
Hi, today I'm talking to Deborah Henry, multi-talented TV host, model, former Miss Malaysia, and more importantly, a leading figure in the humanitarian space and founder of the Fuji School. How are you today?
Good. Happy to be here.
Well, today we want to focus a lot on what's been happening over the last 18 months, especially with your work with the refugees. What's been some of the more challenging episodes that you've had to go through?
Well, I think we've all had to go through a lot of challenges in the past 2 years. It's sort of this unprecedented thing that has happened to all of us. But I think we've gone through phases, you know, even for me personally. Started off the year in disbelief last year, and then disbelief and shock, and then it sort of like evolved into like frustration and anger and stress. And a lot of that is just not sustainable, right? You can't sustain feeling that way for a long period of time, or trying to run businesses and what more the kind of work that I've been focusing on, which is a non-profit organization and a social enterprise, Fuji and our social enterprise, Fujila. I'm also on the ground. I work with the communities very closely. I see a lot of what they go through. So it has kind of taken its toll in a very real way. But when you do this kind of work, you don't have the opportunity to kind of, in a way, take a day off, which is something I'm trying to learn how to do better. But the needs are there, and so you have to step up. You have to find a solution. You have to deliver. So that's kind of summing up the past like 1.5 years.
If you reflect back, you started this in 2008. Let's get into why. What was the motivations for you to start that, and what have been some of the most unexpected things in this journey?
So I started the school in 2008, and this was after my first encounter with a refugee family in Malaysia. I've always been interested in development work, humanitarian work, since I was a teenager. So I've volunteered many times with many organizations. I even studied political science and economics in university. So I was very convicted that this was something I wanted to do in life, apart from the modeling and the pageants, right? So came back to Malaysia, and I was approached by UNHCR to film this documentary about refugee families living here. And so one of the families that really stuck out to me was the Somali family. They'd come here, 4 siblings, all kids like between the ages of about 10 to like 14, with their grandmother. And I went to their home, I sat in their house and to speak to them, to find out about their life here in Malaysia. And it really stuck with me, because there were these 4 kids in Malaysia, in my home, my country, and they didn't have access to school. I remember leaving their apartment that day going, I can't just give them a little bit of money and say good luck with life. I have to do something here, because, we talk about food, water, and shelter as the key rights and necessities for survival. But a kid today without an education, we're setting them up to fail in life, right?
And in that journey, what's been some of the most difficult challenges that you've had to deal with?
What I've witnessed it firsthand with friends, with people I know, and media generally everywhere, is that there's sometimes a lack of acceptance we have towards the refugee community, and a lot of misunderstanding, misinformation. I always say, put yourself in someone else's shoes. If bombs dropped on your house tomorrow, if you were forced to flee your home, what would you do?
Right.
To protect your kids? You'd probably pack your bags and run, and you'd be knocking on your neighbor's door going, let me in, because I think that's the human spirit, right? We are resilient and we find ways to survive. A lot of the work we do is very much in the gray zone. Is it really legal? Are we really allowed to do it? We're constantly pushing the boundaries in terms of what we can and can't do, and so we need a lot of support. And because we are a nonprofit, you need to fundraise.
Yes.
So that's also a big challenge, right? And then coming out of this pandemic, it's even a bigger challenge. And it was even like earlier this year, we were going through a really tough time as an organization, and funding was like, literally we were living month to month, which is not a good place to be. And I did something which I don't normally do. I reached out, like I recorded a video, I put it on my Instagram page and just going, guys, I know you've supported us. We've been around for more than a decade, but it's really tough right now. We need your support. And you know, it was a really heartfelt, very honest conversation I just had with, you know, people who follow me, and it just resulted in a huge outpouring of support in terms of funds, but also in terms of just solidarity, and that really felt good.
You've built an amazing track record, going on for more than a decade. What energizes you?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's the children.
Okay.
It's the kids, it's the youth, and I think because I'm on the ground, and I go to the school. I spend time with the children in so many different ways. I see their successes. I experience the successes with them. I also experience the sad moments with them. So that is really the fuel.
On those dark days and tough moments, do you sometimes compartmentalize your day and you know, just to be able to get through? How do you deal with not being overwhelmed with?
I can go quite deep and quite like, I get heavy. And so that's been my challenge. I think I've noticed it more in the past like year or so, just with a lot of the stuff going on and witnessing so many sad stories. It has pulled me down. And recently with what happened in Afghanistan, I think working with the Afghan community here, supporting them, and then just seeing what happened there and having a very first-hand encounter of like the stories going on there, that really got to me. And then watching the news, oh my gosh, I literally I had like a few really bad weeks of like, I just can't, like I was just emotionally very, like a wreck. And then the decision I made was, you know what, I have to stop watching the news.
So besides the work that you do here in Malaysia, you've also had the chance to visit a lot of war-torn and crisis countries.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of those experiences.
Yeah, so I've had the privilege actually to work with World Vision and through my network with international organizations, and so that's taken me to quite a few countries. I really think it is important when you do this work to be able to really be on the ground and if you have the opportunity to visit, to do so, because it really it gives you this kind of knowledge and insight that you cannot get watching the news or reading a book. So I was in Lebanon a couple of years ago on a humanitarian mission and visited Syrian refugees who had crossed the border. And so that was that, and then a few years later I went to Mogadishu in Somalia, which is considered to be one of the most dangerous cities on earth. So my parents were not very pleased with me heading there, but two very very deep experiences to see people live like that.
So with all of that, how has all these experiences changed you as a person, or has it?
It definitely has. I think a lot of people think that, oh, you know, you've set up a nonprofit, you're doing this, it's so nice of you to give, but it's changed me so much. I think to be the humility, the gratitude of your life, of your existence, to not be apologetic for what you have or who you are as a person, but to show compassion and to give to others. So right. It's given me a lot more purpose in terms of the kind of life I want to live, what I want to do, and I think for me, because I was in the world of fashion modeling, it's given me it's kept my feet on the ground in a very important way.
What would you want to share with someone who's going through today very challenging circumstances, feeling overwhelmed, feeling distressed?
I think it's incredibly important to have a support circle. And that can be in any way, shape or form, whether it's a person, whether it's an activity, something that you can hold on to turn to that gives you some form of strength, solace in your challenging times. So determining what that looks like. Because when you're alone, typically when you're going through something like that, you isolate yourself. So that's a really important connection to have with something else. Another thing is that I know it sounds hard, but I say this to myself as well. Like nothing, it doesn't usually last forever. It's a phase, and it's a moment. So it's being able to work through that, because then there is light that comes after.
Well, thank you very much for sharing what true grit really matters, the resilience to keep going when you face insurmountable odds, because the sun will always come up tomorrow.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us,
Thank
Deborah.
you. Thank you.